Hi guys, welcome to Adorn. Thanks for joining me here. Adorn is going to be a beautiful collection of vintage furniture that I'm offering to you guys here in Mount Vernon. We are going to focus on a personalized shopping experience. So we're going to have some in-store and virtual interior design services. We do custom furniture restoration. We also do custom pendant lamp lights. So thanks again for joining. Make sure you guys follow me on social media, Adorn Vintage Furniture, all spelled out, all one word, on Instagram and on Facebook.
So good Baltimore morning, everyone. Thank you so much, Raina, for having us here. My name is Kira Wisniewski, and I have the distinct pleasure of being your host and co-organizer of Creative Mornings Baltimore. We're so excited to be coming to you live from Adorn Vintage Furniture on the ancestral land of the Piscataway people in Baltimore City. I'm so glad that you're here with us, albeit virtually. But before we get started, I want to say out loud, Black Lives Matter. We're also happy to be offering ASL from our friends Lauren and Anessa from HASA, and we're going to drop in the chat right now. Hopefully this works. We're testing this out. Live captioning from Otter AI, because if we're truly going to live up to our mantra that everyone is invited, we have to always try to increase our accessibility. Hopefully this works, y'all. I also want to acknowledge that we're all going through trauma on some level right now. There's a pandemic, and I think it's important to name that while also being so grateful for you joining us this morning. So whether you're on YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter through Periscope, I encourage you to use that share button right now on whatever platform you're using. I'll wait a beat. You doing it? All right. Creative Mornings is one of over 200 chapters around the world. And what unites us is that we all believe that everyone is creative and everyone is invited. We are one of dozens of global events happening today. So one more time, please go ahead, hit that share button. And tag us too, Baltimore_CM. We'd love to see what things are looking like on your end and where you're joining us from this morning. And we know that this cannot replace the IRL event. And we also want to hear what you think of today's event. We're going to send a brief survey to everyone who registered. We'll also have a link in the chat later on at the end. I love actionable feedback. Please be honest on how we can make this experience better for you. And so thank you in advance for completing the survey. We have Anita, Arlene, Eric, and we have Anita, Arlene, and Eric, our wonderful Creative Mornings Baltimore volunteers that are engaging you in the chat. Hi, y'all.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
Beautiful faces. Hey. I also want to highlight that we have Amanda Mustard doing another incredible graphic reporting of this talk, so be sure to check that out on social media later this week. Hey, Amanda.
Hi.
And each month, we ask someone special to read our manifesto. Today, we have the honor to welcome Will Walker. He's a man of many hats, many talents, and you've probably seen him literally running around Baltimore City. He's an engineer by day, but has side hustles aplenty. You may know him from Brunch and Burn, All Aboard Meal Prep, or A Tribe Called to Run, a run crew that's practicing socially distanced distance runs on Mondays at 6 p.m. from our house. Or you may know him from this very event. We wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for him. So please welcome former Creative Mornings Baltimore host, Will Walker, to read the Creative Mornings Manifesto.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for the introduction. Thank you for tapping me and allowing me to read a manifesto. I just very grateful. Just want to give you a huge shout out for how you've taken the baton and made Creative Mornings a great platform that everybody in Baltimore City can enjoy and love. So without any further ado, I guess I'll get into it. Everyone is creative. A creative life requires bravery and action, honesty and hard work. We're here to support you, celebrate with you, and encourage you to make the things you love. We believe in the power of community. We believe in giving a damn. We believe in face-to-face connections and learning from others, in virtual hugs and digital high fives. We bring together people who are driven by passion and purpose, confident that they will inspire one another and inspire change in neighborhoods and cities around the world. Everyone is welcome. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Will. Creative Mornings is run on an engine of generosity made possible by our volunteers and fueled by companies that believe in community, people and companies that give a damn. Creative Mornings Baltimore is 100% volunteer run. Shout out to today's dream team, Mario, Henley, Winston, Schaun, Amanda, Erica, Sabina, Arlene, Anita, and Veronica. We truly could not do this without you. And this is also where we'd have the slides of the logos of our beloved partners, but we're going analog, and luckily we have some signs from one of those sustaining partners, Alpha Graphics. Hey, I've said it many times before, but on a very personal level, one of the greatest things about working with Creative Mornings is the opportunity to work with some of my favorite local brands, including Adorn Vintage Furniture, Hasa, you can drop them, Impact Hub Baltimore, yeah. Local Color Flowers, Maryland Art Place, Pixelated Photo Booth, and White Tea Co. We're also sponsored globally by Mailchimp and Basecamp. Hey. So we're dropping
Yes.
Yeah, right. We're good? We're live? Hey, sorry about that, y'all. What I was saying is basically I was asking you for money because we're an all volunteer run operation. We're going to get a Patreon going. We heard you last month, but right now you can still give online. There should be a link in the bottom of your screen right now. So maybe right here. And then also in the chat. If 7 of you give $2 each, then we'll cover our Zoom account. And then if 9 of you give $10 each, we can offset our ASL. So this is all just very tangible places where your very low cost donation could go. Okay, so today we are exploring the theme of radical. Our San Diego chapter chose this month's theme, and Mahashari Janartarn illustrated the theme. There should be a link in the chat right now for them too. And Mailchimp has sponsored it globally. And now let's get to why we're all gathered here today. Jackie Milad creates textured collage and drawing works on paper and canvas. Milad has been featured in group and solo exhibitions nationally and internationally. Milad is a 3-time recipient of the Individual Artist Grant from the Maryland State Arts Council. In 2019, she was honored as a finalist for the prestigious Janet Walter Sondheim Prize. Milad received her BFA from the School of the Museum of Fine Arts at Tufts and an MFA from Towson University. Besides her active studio practice, Jackie Milad has an extensive career as a curator and educator, where she has committed many years to the education and support of emerging artists. Creative Mornings Baltimore, please help me welcome Jackie to the virtually hybrid stage.
Hello. Thank you. Radical. It's a word that we hear all too often these days. It's something that is used to describe perhaps something to fear, or maybe something that's dangerous. But of course, there's another way to look at a word, always, right? What if for this talk we consider how radical might be used to describe a pathway to something generative, transformative even? If we think of the status quo as a cocoon, it's safe, it's warm, it's super comfortable. I know that we would all love to be blissed out in our cocoon. I know for myself, I'm prone to doing that. But we also know that a cocoon can be rather restrictive. Therefore, it's important to push on that cocoon membrane until you pop it into some other realm of possibilities. It's asking the question, what happens if? And of course, even small everyday decisions can be radical. I agree with those that, who say that radical or being radical can be scary. It means breaking away from the thing you believe is protecting you, right? Let's remember, radical does not have to be some grand gesture or something at a scale that's global even. Because radical just means a break from tradition, a break from habit, a break from expectations. Radical really depends on the context, on the individual. I know all of us have, at one moment, done something radical. Speaking personally, I'm not always a huge risk taker. Radical doesn't usually come into my everyday life. But in my studio practice, that is a completely different story. And when I need some radical inspiration, I think of my parents, who immigrated to this country with not much more than dreams to sustain them. I think about all of the artist peers that I have here in the city, who work in experimental ways all the time in their studio, including my partner, Tom Borum, a musician and artist who makes the most ambitious projects seem so easy, and they're purely exciting to me. During art school, I spent most of my time focused on performance art, making performance art, studying it, and I would say that the artists that excited me most were women artists, performance artists of the 60s, 70s, and 80s. To me, they defined radical art making, their vulnerability, their fearlessness, not only in form, but content. They pushed back on oppressive power structures of all sorts. Their work depended on improvisation, audience participation, and political provocation. And to make art, that's not a commodity, well, that's fucking badass radical. Because of my deep love of drawing and performance art, I was constantly trying to bridge the two disciplines together. So I started making drawings as scores to be performed by other people. I really tried to keep myself out of these works and out of the equation to make it more universal. I intentionally tried to make work that had nothing personal about it. My preferred style of making was fast, minimalistic, single-line figurative drawings. I kept my paper white, my marks minimal, and because of this quick process, I was able to amass a very extensive archive of my own work. After years of working this way, I began to treat these drawings as precious little objects. I needed to keep them safe, wrap them up in an archival glassine cocoon. The vulnerability and fearlessness I celebrated in the work of those great performance artists was not happening in my work anymore. So things needed to change, and oh, they did. On my son Pierre's very first steps into my studio, at only 3 years old, he disrupted all of my art making strategies. My child drew boldly, without fear, on my older artwork from my archive. He showed me radical art making. He pushed me to ask questions, to confront my discomfort. And from there, I knew that I had no choice but to really start to insert myself into the work, my identity. I needed to do that boldly and without apology. This prompted me to look at my work a bit differently, very differently. All this work that I had accumulated that was so precious was void of action. I decided the only way forward was to engage in something drastic, radical. And thus I began this journey of painting over and cutting up my work for collage materials. On the outset, I wanted to create packed, jammed, dense collage drawings and paintings. I wanted to have them full of language, symbols sourced from my own mixed heritage, other symbols of my own making. I'm responding to chaos in my work. I consider my works to be ongoing, never finished. And moreover, I view cutting up or painting over my own work and reusing it as a way to showing that history and documentation of my hand. Additionally, I love this idea of rebirth in my work. It really is very liberating. This act, for me, is my performance art. The pieces that you see, these are the outcomes of those performances. I see working in this way as a time-based media. And artwork has no permanence in time. This process of collaging or creating works that never end is an intentional act of defiance. It's my way of pushing back on art world norms that don't serve me and likely never will. This way, I have power over my voice, over my work, and hopefully over my legacy. I've come to realize how important it is to question the limits in my creative practice and to consider even rejections and failures as a part of that process. And really, if I don't push myself in radical ways in my studio, how else will my work grow? How else will I grow? How do we grow if not by personal and collective radical change? I want to thank Creative Mornings Baltimore for this amazing opportunity to share my thoughts and my work with you all. Thank you.
Yay! Thank you.
I'm going to mask it up.
Okay, great. Thank you, Jackie. I love so much of what you had to say. And so now it's time for Q&A. So if you have questions, you can go ahead and write them in the chat on whatever platform you're using, and we'll be able to highlight them on the screen. That's why I have this iPad right now. Doesn't this look so fancy? But I'll go ahead and start.
Yeah.
So we actually approached you to be a speaker in February. And then we kind of gave you the list of the words because we knew we wanted you to be a speaker, and you chose radical. But I know that a lot has changed in the past 9 months. And we also maybe learned
Right.
to not ask speakers 9 months ahead of time to do a 15-minute talk. You want to take us a little on the journey of how this talk has evolved?
Yeah. I think that when you all first approached me, you gave me a list of words that I should be looking into, or not looking into, or words to choose from, rather. And for me, radical just immediately popped out. And I was thinking, oh God, what did I do? Because in this upcoming year, we have an election, and this is back in February. I was already concerned about oh my God, there's so much to think about with regards to the word radical. And then the pandemic happened, totally unprepared in my mind. How do I even address radical with all that's going on? And we're talking about more than just one pandemic, right? And it was quite a journey. Yeah, you all were very encouraging. You're like, you can do it. So I was like,
yeah, it is definitely a lesson for us to perhaps not ask speakers 9 months in advance, so you don't have to
always
keep
changing.
thinking about it, and the world is changing so much. How did you feel when you cut up that first piece of work?
That yeah, it's not easy. It's not easy cutting up work, to be honest. It's the sort of lead up to it isn't easy, but once I get into it and I start cutting my work and reusing it, it's very exciting. It's thrilling, actually. And I know as I'm making work now, because I've been in this process for a while, I know that I can't make any mistakes, if the work isn't coming together for me at the moment, I know that I could then later use it, cut it up and use it in some other piece. And so it's liberating. But yeah, the very first time that I cut into my work and painted over it was really, really difficult.
I love to hear that it's liberating now. So you don't have that feeling, cutting up your work now, you don't have that same feeling, or do you still have a little?
I have a little. Oh, well, yeah, there's definitely, because, it's so easy to get precious about, your labor and I get really into something that I did. And yeah, I think it's always just a big jump. It's like going into a big pool of cold water, and you're like, oh, this is gonna hurt.
But then be great.
Then be great.
Yeah. I love that analogy. So you talked about in your talk and that great visual of your son interacting, contributing to your artwork. Can you take us back to that first, when that happened and how you might have felt or reacted in that moment?
Yeah, so up to that point, I hadn't been really working in my studio. I was focused on my full-time job. I was focused on raising him. There wasn't a lot of time for me to be in my studio. And I had a spare room, or I have a spare room in my house, and I put my work up from the past, thinking that it would just kind of be this inspiration. And he walked in and did what he did. And it really was a moment where I thought I was going to lose my mind. It was like a total freak out inside. But it was like, wait a minute, why am I getting freaked out about this? This is something new. This is different. He's really showing me that I need to let go.
And how old is he now?
He's 9.5.
How do you think that he would define the word radical?
He defined it. I asked him this question the other day, and he totally thinks of it as something positive, like it's something that needs to happen. It's something exciting, and I thought that was, you know, totally radical, dude.
I love it. I love it. So Andrea, who is joining us on YouTube, she asked, can you talk a bit more about inserting yourself more into your work?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think that I just, you know, for so long wanted my work to be void of my identity. I kind of came up in the 90s in art school where identity politics was like what everyone talked about in terms of like art making and that sort of thing. And I just wanted to not do that. You know, I wanted my work to be really universal, and so that's kind of like where my thinking was, you know, in just until, you know, the 2000s. And so when I say like putting myself into the work, that's really very radical for me. It's very different. It's showing a vulnerability that I just actually was, this is all kind of new to me, right? And what I guess is I'm addressing my own everyday, you know. There's definitely, you know, symbols that I've made up or that I've kind of been inspired by my culture, my parents' cultures. And so it's not necessary that you're going to get it. And I get often asked, like, can you decode the work? And I'm not interested in decoding my work for people. I think that y'all like have to come to it with your own, right? Like your own experiences. And, you know, it doesn't have to be for everyone, the work. And that's okay. We have to all be okay with that.
So another question that we have coming from Facebook, how do you stay inspired?
Wow. Well, I mean, I think that I chose to, you know, chose careers working with artists, you know, whether that's curating and working with emerging artists that way. And now, you know, I work at Maryland Institute College of Art, and I work with younger artists, and I am infinitely inspired by what I see and the thinking that's coming out of you know, younger artists. And I'm inspired by my everyday with my child and with my partner Tom. Like I think that there's just I don't know like everything. I
love it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Why not? So then we have another question coming from Facebook. Tracy said, I'd love to hear more about how scale fits into your practice as you push your boundaries. I love your large work I've seen to the small piece in Megan Mache's book.
Oh, yeah. You know, I think that the large pieces, now that I'm like, you know, going back into my studio, I imagine those becoming even larger. I think that there's something really exciting to create more space where you feel like you're surrounded by the work. I also like the like intimate little experience that a small piece might bring. So yeah, Hi.
Are we back? Are we good? I'm sorry, y'all.
We hit the record limit.
Okay. I'm sorry, y'all. Hopefully we can get through this. I appreciate you so much for muscling through our tech difficulties with us. And you. Thank you so much, especially for just muscling through all of these tech difficulties. We appreciate your good vibes as we get through this. But let's just go back to another question.
Sure.
We have a question from the YouTubes. What's your favorite material to work with?
Oh, that's such a hard question. I have to say that I do love paper. I love how the pencil on paper, the feeling of it, working with it, the textures. It's really exciting to me. But I think that I'm definitely someone that uses all and every material that I can get my hands on, so I'm not really that precious about the materials. I like, I'll use, little pom-poms from the craft store and, high-end paint. So I like whatever I can get my hands on.
Yeah, I love seeing like the fiber elements that you incorporate in your work, like those pom-poms and the fringe and
yeah.
Love it. So jumping back to a question that we might have gotten cut off a little bit, we were talking about scale and just like your large pieces and your small pieces. How I know we had, and I don't know, Henley, if it's too much to ask to bring back up one of the slides of Jackie's work. But how large is a large piece, roughly?
Yeah, they're about like 70 inches by 70 inches.
Like
yeah,
those?
Yep. Those are, if I'm being more precise, they're 68 inches by 68 inches. That particular piece. Yeah, and I like have dreams of making them bigger, or creating larger sort of environments with the work, but at the same kind of intensity and thickness of layers. So yeah, that would be quite a big task for me, I think.
Yeah, I love it. If there are any other questions in the chat, like let's have them. But where can people see your work now?
Well, right now, of course, because of all the lockdowns that are recently announced, again, like I think the best way to see my work for now is online. I have website, of course, it's JackieMilad.com. You can follow me on Instagram. I'm fairly active there as well. And if you want to be on my mailing list, you can just send me a note through my website. And then that way I can alert you of all the upcoming exhibitions and whatnot.
Well, Jackie, I just want to thank you again so much for this talk, for your energy, for your work.
Thank you.
We really, really, really appreciate you. So thank you.
Right back at you.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Yeah. So we're gonna wrap up, and hopefully our sound stays with us. So let's create a selfie moment right now. So if you're at home, go ahead and get your iPad, your cell phone, and Winston, Henley, if we can just focus on just Jackie, just to take a quick little selfie. Good moves. Yeah, I love it. Yeah, I see Mario's actually taking a for real selfie right now of us in the space, and so is Henley. So yeah,
maskless.
Go ahead and tag us, please, at Baltimore_CM. We'd love to see your selfies with Jackie. Again, Jackie, thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's really hard to imagine that a year ago in November 2019, we actually were kicking off the Baltimore Book Festival at Light City with D. Watkins at the top of the world. We're in a very different place today in many, many ways. Today is our last Creative Mornings Baltimore of this very odd year. We'll be back in January, but I hope you'll indulge me for just a moment to highlight some of the incredible people that make this all possible. Schaun Champion joined our team last November. For the first event she photographed was the fabled event with D. Watkins. Since then, she's been taking stunning portraits of our speakers each month, and we're so privileged to have her be part of our community. Amanda Mustard, for well over a year now, has been live illustrating all of our talks, capturing the knowledge bombs and truth nuggets the Creative Mornings speakers bring to the virtual stage each month. And then each month, Veronica Proudford has been curating a playlist based on the theme. She said of the playlist this month, November's playlist is a true sign of the time. From Beach Houses Wild to Panda Bear's Home Free, I curated a selection that speaks to the journey of radical change. So there should be links to all these things in the chat right now. And behind the scenes, we have Arlene, Sabina, Anita, and Eric. They're helping round out your experience today by engaging you in the chat on the platform of your choice and doing all sorts of invisible labor. Sabina is literally holding an iPad for me right now with a teleprompter. And then we have tech superstars that really make this production a production. We have Winston and Henley behind the scenes troubleshooting all the things that we could have never imagined, really making that magic happen. And last but not least, I want to give a special shout out to Mario Brandhorst, my co-organizer in all of this, who when finding a working solution and I say, it's fine, he says, I know it's fine, with slight disdain in his voice as he pushes us all to do better. And then there's the incredible speakers and all of you that show up each month to really make this all worthwhile. So thank you so much. And we're near the end. So here's that link to the survey I mentioned at the top of the event. Again, we'd love to see what this looks like on your end. So please tag us when posting on social media. And to wrap things up, this might sound like a little woo-woo, but I hope that you'll engage. We want to close out today with just some collective intentional breathing. So I invite you to close your eyes. Maybe you want to put your hands on your heart by your side. Maybe you want to sit down, whatever you're doing. So here we go. Breathe in and out. Again, in and out. And one last time, in and out. Thank you again for being here. We know this can't replace the magic of an in-person event, but we hope that you feel connected and part of this community. And we'll see you in January 2021. Wear a mask, y'all.
Yeah.
Yay!
You stole that from LeVar Burton.